Hello, I'm Jamie,
I'm Sam.
and we are two members of Counterfeit, and we're hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live.
I heard about you guys not that long ago, and I jumped in and checked out the music. Instantly got hooked. That debut album is incredible. And now you guys are here back in LA with a new signing with Republic Records. For starters, what do you guys think it was about the band that got the attention of Republic Records?
Oh God, the hair. I don't know.
I think that's what got me at first too.
I don't know. Jason, myself, and Roland met with Jill, our now A&R. Had a really super good hang. Jill came to see the show, as did Devon, who works at Lava. They both loved the show. They sort of loved the energy, or so they said. And then we met with Jason here in LA at the Lava office, and just connected and really clicked. I think there was just something real, that was going on for all of us, in those sort of first few meetings that we just connected, and it was like, all right. Jason called me. He sent me a text after we had a lunch together, being like, I know you're a real rock star. I can see it when I look in your eyes. I'm like, Jason, stop massaging my ego, dude. But yeah, I don't know. We just seemed to just connect and click, on a sort of personal level. And they said that they loved the music. It's a weird thing for us to be like, oh, okay, thanks, I guess, But just as people, I think we get along really well.
Yeah. Now that you guys have this, major label signing behind you guys, and you guys just debuted, you guys just released your debut single as, under Republic and Lava, which was It Gets Better. How different is it releasing a track, your first track with a label, as opposed to when you guys are first, releasing your first ever music?
It's interesting. I mean, obviously there's that kind of support element, but luckily we've been able to, work with Lava quite closely, and they're not a massive team as it is. By a lot of standards, they have kind of the infrastructure of an indie in the way that we're really close with IANR, and we really get on, and we have a bit good connection there, and they support us in those areas. So in a lot of ways, they gave us so much, support, but allowed us to do whatever we wanted still. Just by giving us the best opportunities I think that they could. Right. And it's always that weird thing, we're like, what's going to happen? You get worried that everyone's going to be, taken out of your hands. And we love doing things ourselves. We always have done. Right. And that's kind of at the core of who we are as a band. And we've been allowed to do that and carry on in that way, which has been really lovely. So yeah, big love to everyone at Lava.
That's cool. That's cool. Now you guys, like I mentioned earlier, you guys already had a debut album out, as independent artists. You guys just released that first single off of new music. I don't know, it might be an EP, might be an album, might be just be singles. But, where is your mindset now that you guys are, writing this new material?
Keep going. Yeah. That's where my mindset's at the moment. It's like we have been given an incredible opportunity by the team at Universal and the team at Republic and the team at Lava, and our mindset at the moment is yes, we're incredibly proud of what we're doing at the moment and the songs that we've written and the tracks that we've recorded, but ultimately our drive is always going to be keep going. Keep chasing that never-ending dream, keep chasing that genius, that brilliance, that feeling that you get when you've done something beautiful. I think a lot of artists and a lot of people nowadays, it's that sort of feeling of 15 minutes of fame, and it's oh well, we signed the major deal, that's it, there's nothing else to be done. Well, for us, it's we've been fortunate enough to be given this opportunity. We're now entrenched in it so much and supported so much by it. Let's just keep going. Why stop? Why sit back? And so we're in this kind of space where it's really exciting, and we just want to keep pushing, I think, is what we want to do.
Right. And we were mentioning before this interview, how you guys were in that creative space earlier today. You guys were, lost in, creative, not necessarily lost, but you guys were, creating something. So when you have those moments, how are you able to kind of hold on to those moments instead of getting distracted with something else?
Well, it depends what we're doing, but I mean, modern technology makes everything so easy. It's you come up with a melody, or you come up with something you're on the bus or something, whatever. You've got voice notes straight to hand, just collecting it and just making sure it's there, and you don't always have to force everything out. And sometimes things just comes in moments, and that's it. And it's kind of as long as you're able to get those moments and be able to kind of either record them or write it down and have it, then you'll have it, and you'll be able to either come back to it later, or depending on how you're feeling, and just be able to roll with it. I think
Yeah, I think it's also about kind of like separating. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but I'm gonna swear.
You can do whatever you want.
Thank you. I just might. I think it's about like separating the bullshit side of it too. There is obviously like a lot of bullshit that does go on, and the most important thing for us is as a band and as people is that creative drive.
Right.
And holding on to it, is really, really important. And being like, look, I understand that there's like 1,000 business conversations that need to be had. I dig it. I get it. But at the same time, our job and our main focus will always be, let's be as creative as possible, So in that, you kind of have to sort of set boundaries sometimes and be like, don't bother me right now.
Right.
I'm doing the good work, right?
You're the reason why they have a job at the end sometimes too. Like,
Well, it's the reason that we all work together. Like we're all, like just because it's a major corporation doesn't mean that it's void of creativity. In fact, actually, what I found is that being involved in a major corporation, we've actually seen so much creativity from particularly from the like artwork side of things. Like we created this character and sent it off to Universal, and they came back within like a week with these killer animations of this character. It was so dope, and I was like, that is the sickest thing, because we're all in this to be like driven by creativity. Like that is our goal. So it's just sometimes it's just about being like, look, we've got to focus on what is happening at this moment rather than looking 6 months down the line and figuring out whatever it may be that needs to be figured out. Let's just let that happen, and let's let inspiration seep in whenever we can.
right. Now, what about like in the writing process? Like, do you guys feel like there's been a big change in like the way that you guys kind of write your music today, or like the kind of words you guys use in your lyrics?
In terms of the way we write, it changes song to song, and it always has done. I think from the very start of this band. In terms of kind of a message and progression, we took album one, and we took the themes, and we took the kind of the message behind it, and it just got developed, and it just became more kind of self-aware of itself, was able to reference those emotions and feelings that we spoke about on the first record.
Right.
And take them kind of to the next level of explanation, or the next level of understanding, and feed off those emotions, feed off those feelings, and then bring it into the music. I think that was at the core of a lot of what we did going into this, I think. I mean, would you agree with that? Yeah.
I mean, some of it was written here in LA, some of it was written in the UK. Writing here is always interesting. It's always a trip, like particularly Los Angeles. It's such a crazy, weird place, and there's just madness goes on everywhere. And it brings out a sort of side of me, particularly that's I don't know, it's different. Like when I'm at home and I'm writing in London, I'm a lot more comfortable, and there's a level of sort of unease that floats around Los Angeles for me that I find quite interesting when I'm writing. I think, like Sam said, though, the message is progressing always. I think the first record was quite a sort of self-absorbed, selfish album in a weird way, and this one is a lot more sort of aware of self, but also of like stepping outside of self. And that's that is part of awareness, and it is commenting. That we had that track on the first record enough. We've got another track on this this batch of songs that we've made called 1144, which is kind of like enough in the sense that it's sort of it's a sort of social commentary on what's happening around us in terms of both politically and emotionally as human beings, and how we're all sort of feeling a little bit jaded and a little bit kind of disassociated with one another, and the need for, as far as I'm aware, the need for sort of connection and the need for rebellion in some way. But then there's also, you know, songs on this album about mental health, about depression, songs about hope, songs about change, songs about love. You know, it's a very sort of varied group of emotions that are going on in there. I think it's just part of growth, isn't it? You know, as a person, the more you grow, the more you say.
Right.
I
More
think.
experience in a way too. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Now, you know, the fact that you guys are able to touch on so many different topics, but yet it's still one body of work. It's one album or one EP. Like, how are you guys able to make it, you know, be so, you know, the next song goes with the previous or the last song, you know? Like, how does it all come, you know, kind of come together?
I don't know. I don't think it's really like, I don't think it's not a conscious, it's not really a conscious decision. It just is, you know, in the same way. It's the same minds, the same mouths, the same, you know, the same hearts. And I think through that, it just has this continuity in it. And I don't think, you know, I think genre these days is one of those things where it's like, it is and it isn't, in a way, if that makes sense. And that as long as it has the same heart in each thing, you could, you know, you could have a completely different styles and it would still, you would still feel glued in a way. I think that's really important. It's kind of what I love about music as well. I grew up listening to so many different styles. You know, my parents didn't raise me. They were like, you're going to listen to classic rock. Like, we had jazz in the house, we had classical, we had like Scandinavian rock and all of this at once. And so that's a big part of who I am as a musician and the music that I listen to. And kind of my taste, as it were, comes through that. And I kind of celebrate that diversity within music and think it's actually really interesting when that happens. So yeah, I think it's like, just if it's got the same heart and it's got, you know, then I think it has that glue and it has that like continuity anyway, whatever it may be.
I think sonically what you'll hear as we sort of go through the release process is like an expansion, you know, of sound and an expansion of theatricality, you know, like It Gets Better is a very sort of close sounding track. It's a very sort of, I like things that sound close to the ear. It's something that for me I've always been into. I think it's probably because of like working a lot on the computer. A lot of the time you are very like in it, you know, the sounds are very close. But I think as we grow and as the songs that we release, I think what I'm hoping for is a sort of expansion of sound and an opening up of that. And I think part of that is to do with choice, to do with like what tracks you release when. And the other part of that is growth as a band, you know. I think that the body of work that we've written thus far, I'm really happy with, I'm really proud of. But I want to keep going. I want to just keep pushing those boundaries, you know, and that's half the fun of it, you know. Half the fun of it for us, particularly, you know, playing shows, is that as we go and as we play these songs, we get to kind of feel them out more. You know, we're playing all new material, so I don't know, as Sam said, it's the same hearts, the same minds, the same mouths.
Now, as you mentioned, like expansion of sound, like, is it the band kind of testing out new instrumentations or new ways of recording, or is it just bringing in a different producer this time around into the studio?
I think we went into it with a kind of emphasis on dynamics. On an emphasis, you know, when we made the first record, it was very like bam, like loud and like really fast, and that was what we were going for, and that's what we did. And then what we went into this was the focus of it, of kind of taking those dynamics and, you know, really expanding on them. And, you know, and when that happens, you get, you know, if you have a really dense, loud section, that's going to be more effective when placed next to something that's quite sparse, rather than everything being like bam at the same time. It kind of loses that effect in a way. And that only really came in hindsight. It wasn't something that we really planned to have, like these big like peaks and troughs. But yeah, it kind of that was kind of at the basis of it, was just, you know, take these dynamics, expand on it, really indulge in each section and what you can do to it to make it really like effective and you know, be exactly the way we wanted it to be. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't massively like new instrumentation. We had more opportunity. You know, we were in a studio that had a beautiful piano in, so we're able to use things like that. We were presented with beautiful instruments to play through our great producer, and And so that was lovely, but it wasn't something we didn't like go into the desert and try and play, you know, the sitar for days on end. Nothing like that happened.
Yeah, there we go. Number 3, right?
Yeah, totally.
So as you guys, you know, you mentioned earlier, you guys grew up, your parents kind of introduced you to different types of music. It wasn't a specific genre that you guys grew up listening to. So how did that impact or influence like the type of band that you guys created? Like why was Counterfeit created?
Oh, why was it created? It was created as a sort of necessary emotional outpour, really. Yeah, I mean, we've all been playing forever. I used to play drums in a indie band in London. You know, I've got my friend Gabriel here tonight, who I used to play drums for when I was a kid. You know, he's opening up the show for us this evening, and very lucky to have him. So yeah, I used to play drums in an indie band, and Sam, you know, Sam's sort of been farting around with like classical music and various different stuff for a while. Tristan's been sort of more of a sort of like home musician. You know, Roland, our bass player, he's been out, you know, playing in metal bands and all sorts of crazy weird stuff, you know, death metal and all sorts of weird shit. Jimmy, our drummer's played in, you know, like indie bands. I remember, I mean, I'm 30 now, so I met Jimmy when I was 18, and he was drumming for a band in London called the Pipettes, and then he ended up drumming for his brother's band called One Night Only. So we've all kind of got various different influences. But the band was created as a sort of emotional outlet, and in that there's a real sense of freedom in that, because I think that will allow us as a group and as artists to basically do whatever we want. Like, we never sort of went into it being like, because people used to say, "Oh, you're a punk band," and I used to be like, "Are we? Like, are we a punk band? Like, yeah, sure, we don't give a shit, but like, you know, like, yeah, that in it, you know, is sort of part of the punk attitude. But like, we never set out to be anything. We just set out to be a group of musicians unified in that. And I think as we sort of develop and as we grow, we'll be able to do so many more things, and that's purely because, you know, we didn't set out to be anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Guys, that's awesome, and congratulations with the signing with Republic. I definitely want to keep doing this. I know you guys have to play pretty soon, but we got to get back together next time you guys are in LA, and hopefully, you know, maybe an in-studio session, because I'm curious, like, what it's like to be in the studio with you guys. I feel like it's just intense. Some madness going on.
It's really intense. Yeah, it's a real intense vibe. Yeah, but it's great. You know, it's chaos occasionally. I've described it in times as like being at Guitar Center on a Saturday afternoon. So we love that.
One in Hollywood too.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, what the hell is going on over there? Oh my God. Yeah, it's fun though.